Fleur Hassan-Nahoum is joining us, and Israel's special envoy for trade and innovation, as well as the former deputy mayor of Jerusalem. It's good to see you. Thanks so much for coming back on National Report. So let's talk about this meeting. Good morning to you. Prime Minister Netanyahu coming to the White House for a state dinner, a bilateral meeting, as well as a press briefing. What are you expecting from this? Are you encouraged by the meeting between the two leaders?
Well, let's start with this. He is the first foreign head of state that's been invited to the White House. If you compare that with the previous administration, Biden did his best to have him come one of the last foreign leaders to come to the White House. So there's already an incredible contrast. There's a very long laundry list, unfortunately. We're in the middle of a war, seven-front war, and we have a lot of reassurances about America and its strong allyship with Israel, but we have bigger problems. Our main problems are Iran and a nuclear Iran, and how we together as liberal democracies, as democracies of the free world, how are we going to be dealing with the worst threat that humanity is facing right now, which is a jihadi Islamic regime armed with a nuclear weapon, potentially in the next few months.
Indeed, there are so many factors that are to be considered at this time, especially when you have lives at risk being held hostage still by Hamas. And there's a lot of questions, Fleur, about what happens with the second phase of the ceasefire deal if it does continue on as planned. President Trump was asked about it. Here's what he had to say.
On the Middle East, Mr. President, if I may, do you still have doubts that the ceasefire will hold?
On what?
On the Middle East, do you think the ceasefire will hold?
I have no assurances that it'll hold. I mean, I've seen people brutalized. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. No, I have no guarantees that the peace is going to hold.
So you heard the president there, unsure of what's to come. Just your thoughts on the stability of this deal.
Well, I think President Trump knows better than anyone that what we're dealing with is a brutal, genocidal terrorist group. And yes, everybody wants the hostages home here in Israel. We're praying for the hostages to come home. But let's not forget that on the 6th of October, we had a ceasefire with Hamas. Last year, when we got 100 hostages out, we also had a ceasefire with Hamas that they broke. They break the ceasefire. Today, we have 6 people injured, 2 people dead, and 4 people brutally injured in an attack by Hamas on a military base. So these people are not people who are going to keep the ceasefire for too long. The question is, how many of our hostages will be able to get out before they break the ceasefire again? And I think President Trump understands this.
Aside from discussing the hostages, the ceasefire deal, who governs Gaza, or which body governs Gaza moving ahead, you would imagine that a lot of the talk, or a bulk of it, could be about the threat of Iran or the supply of weapons from Iran to other factions. Did you want to weigh in on that?
Well, absolutely. I think what everybody wants to avoid is the fact that the reconstructed Gaza ends up being a proxy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And in a way, really, that's the most meaningful thing that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu should be talking about, and I'm sure they will be. Because ultimately, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Shia groups in Iraq, all of those are arms of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And Israel and the United States, to a certain extent, we will all be continuing to play whack-a-mole unless we get rid of the head of the snake. And so we can do what President Trump did in the last administration, which was apply maximum pressure to the economy to get Iran to the point where its own people want to overthrow their regime, and Israel, as well as the United States, help those people find freedom in their country with different leadership. And I think that's really the most meaningful thing. This is what we're doing together for the free world. This is not just about Israel, and it's also about America. It's about the free world.
That meeting happens later today. Newsmax will bring you complete coverage. Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.